Welcome to Empowered Within, a soul-quenching, transformational podcast that will set your soul on fire. Through candid and inspiring conversations, leading experts, celebrities, healers, and I share our journeys of how we've overcome challenges to living an empowered life from within. I'm your host, Jennifer Pilates. Welcome to another episode of Empowered Within. Hi there, and welcome to the show. I am honored to have with us today's guest, Jessica Procini. Jessica is a woman on a mission. She is the founder and leader of Escape from Emotional Eating since 2011. She has been helping women who strive for excellence embody their full potential by healing the roots of their emotional eating. As a sought-after thought leader, Jessica's work has received multiple awards year after year from the Institute of Psychology of Eating, and she has been featured in noteworthy media outlets such as ABC, CBS, and MindBodyGreen. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. We just had, oh my gosh, so much fun talking about all the places that we like to vacation and how we have seashelling in common.
Yes.
I love it. Well, first of all, first and foremost, congratulations on all of your success. You have been helping women to transform and to empower within, and that is just so amazing and so important. But let's talk about you and how you transformed yourself and became empowered within. How did you find this compassionate line of work helping women and healing them from emotional eating?
Yeah. Well, I love the title of your podcast because I really think it sums up the work that I do with my clients, specifically around food. And I came to this work kind of through synchronicity and a lot of zigs and zags from the universe. But for a long, long time, I was an emotional eater and didn't know it. To put it very succinctly, I was very disempowered in my relationship with food and my body for a number of decades. And food was something that I would always reach for when I was stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, overstimulated, oversaturated, and just didn't really know how to kind of come down or come out of a lot of those feelings. And I was, for a long, long time, using food to cope. And I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I really tried to eat healthy and work out every day, like everyone said you should. And, I would just kind of do this thing with food when life would get chaotic and stressful. But as time went on and life became more and more chaotic and more intense, I started to realize that this was just my mode of operation, that eating to cope was what I did. And it started to happen more and more out of my control, as if like something was taking over my body and making it happen to me. And when that was happening, I really tried to amplify and accelerate how healthy I ate and how much working out I did. But I started to realize that just made my relationship with food even more chaotic. And the more that I tried to control what was out of control in my relationship with food, the more out of control it became. And for many years, like I said, I didn't know that I was an emotional eater because I thought to be an emotional eater meant that you had to have a certain amount of weight to lose. And for me, it was only like 20 to 30 pounds that was really kind of hanging on my body. So I never really saw myself in that light. And I also wasn't eating 10 or 15 bags of something. At most, it was like a whole bag of granola or a whole bag of this or that, healthy Oreos, kind of like more like healthy food. But I came to learn that you can overdo it with healthy food too. And emotional eating doesn't really have anything to do with your size or your shape or even your gender, your socioeconomic status. It doesn't have to do with any of that. emotional eating is using food to cope and it happening in a self-destructive, unsupportive way. And that's what I was doing. So that blew my mind that I was an emotional eater. And then when I started to accept that notion, I started to see a lot of pieces fall into place. Pieces where the hours and years I had spent in therapy, like why that never really helped me in my relationship with food, and why my doctors never kind of spoke up or advocated for me, because emotional eating isn't a medical diagnosis. So a lot of times it falls underneath the radar, and we can often be failed by the medical model because it's not bad, quote unquote, enough to have a serious intervention. So in my relationship with food, I kind of came to this point of like, do I have to wait until I have hundreds of pounds to lose to feel at peace with food? Does this actually have to get a lot worse for someone, something to take my case seriously? Because at that point, I felt so chaotic and so out of control with my relationship with food. I couldn't even imagine it getting worse. I didn't want it to get worse. And that's when I really started to take my relationship with food into my own hands and say, like, enough is enough. I don't care if I don't fit into the conventional stereotype or stigma or things like that. Like, I'm going to change this. This has to change. Like, in order for me to survive, my relationship with food needs to change. And it was from that point that instead of looking outside of myself, I started to really look within and investigated my relationship with food from all different sides: the physical, the mental, my thoughts in my head, the cravings, the compulsions that I was having, and really started to put pieces together that no one was talking about. But even so, that no one was talking about when it came to the relationship with food. And that's when I started to really experience changes to where now it's been since 2015 that I felt crazy or chaotic in my relationship with food. So going on 9 years. Food is a nourishing asset to me. I eat when I'm hungry. I stop when I'm full. I rest when I'm tired. I work when I'm inspired. Like, I'm in healthy alignment and healthy balance when it comes to my body, food, and my energy. And my compulsions with food feel so far in the past that it almost feels like another lifetime to me. But along the way, people started to notice how much lighter I was becoming, how much happier, how much more alive I was when I wasn't emotionally eating. And they just started coming out of the woodwork and being like, "What are you doing? Tell me what you're doing. Like, you look amazing." And that was where I started to share, like, I discovered I was an emotional eater and this is what I've been working on. And then people would grab me by the arm and be like, "You need to work with me. Like, I'm an emotional eater too." And that's really where Escape from Emotional Eating got birthed from, was like people being like, "You need to work with me." And now it really is such a passion and a mission of mine to help other people who, would never check themselves into an eating disorder clinic and also don't feel supported by the old model of just eat healthy and work out more. I really strive to fill a gap for people who are looking for support, particularly for high achieving people who strive for really high goals. These are the types of people that I work with.
That's incredible. And I feel like there's so many people that are gonna go, wait, eating a bag of granola, that's not good. I would love to dive into that a little bit more because it got my mind thinking. I know that I feel there were so many more emotional eaters, whether we want to call it that they were born or they just recognized it, especially after all we've been through the last 4 years. I know myself included. I was
Yeah.
always someone who would not eat And boy, I became an emotional eater. And then I spoke with someone about emotionally eating, and then I really trained myself. Okay, why? Like the other day, I all of a sudden was about to whip up out of nowhere. I found myself in the kitchen and I was whipping up cookies. And I'm like, okay, why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
I literally talked to myself, okay, like you're upset because you think A, B, and C might transpire. Okay. What are we going to do with these cookies? Well, I'm going to make them and I'm going to make them into little balls and I'm put them in the freezer. But I'm going to have three little ones tonight because this is what's going to make me happy. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, as long as we have, and so this is how I ration. I was rationalizing this in my head. And so I'm wondering if you walked us through like what is different about how you're working with women and the incredible amount of success that you've had helping women through
Yeah.
this.
So first I want to say it's not the granola that's the problem, and it's not the cookies that are the problem. I believe a life without cookies isn't really a life worth living, right? These are
Agreed.
like the
Gotta
the
have them.
little lovely joys that we have in our life. But it's when we're engaging with food and we've become lost or disconnected in our relationship with ourselves. So, for example, back in the day when I would eat granola, I could go through an entire bag in a matter of seconds. And it wasn't until my hand hit the bottom of the bag that I would wake up from this food trance, being like, whoa, what just happened? Who ate all my food? And like, where am I? Kind of like almost like blacking out. And
Oh, wow.
that
Okay.
blackout, that kind of food trance I'm describing when we've lost ourselves. And the truth is that back then, not only was I losing myself, I would engage in behaviors to quite literally lose myself. Like it was a daily occurrence where I felt like I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. And I'm not exaggerating. Like that's literally how I felt. So now when I eat, I connect with myself first before I connect with food, meaning I'm checking in with, well, how hungry am I? On a scale of 1 to 10, like where are we? Even more so, I don't let myself get super duper hungry where I'm eating in this super stressed out, rabid state, like where I could murder someone for a meal. That's not really an integrity with me anymore. So, with food now, I'm checking in with myself before I make choices around food. And my choices around food prioritize what's going on in my physical body, but also taking into account what's going on in my emotional body. Because if there's a lot of drama and noise in my emotional body, it will cut me off from my physical body. So, how this then translates to my work is that I'm constantly supporting my clients in going within first instead of going outside of themselves, where there's like a process of reclamation in their power with food, but also there's just a repairing of their connection with themselves and their bodies to the point where they can understand their language of their physical body and their emotional body, where they're having their physical needs met, but they're also learning and understanding and fulfilling their emotional needs. And that one doesn't come at the cost of the other, where we're not, eating all of the cookies and then feeling sick in our bodies or shameful or guilty. Also, where we're, for your example of like not saying, like, okay, I'm just going to have two, and then we have 20, right? That's a disconnect in our relationship with ourselves. So, a lot of what my work boils down to is reconnecting, repairing our relationship with ourselves, and then engaging with food in a way that's in integrity and in alignment with the highest version of ourselves that we want to be.
I love that. I love bringing in the alignment of, in essence, what you're saying, the body, mind, and spirit, to be present
Mhm.
in our body, because so many of us, especially depending on if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, we, generally from a young age have learned to disassociate with our bodies.
Right.
And so learning how to live comfortably and empowered within your body is so important. And I love that that's something that you're targeting as part of your program. When we look at discovering the root of where our emotional eating comes from, how do we do that? Where do we go? What happens?
Well, you come to me
Yeah.
because this is literally where I've spent years researching and developing and connecting dots and identifying patterns that it really has become a core element of my work with my clients. So, over my own personal journey with having walked through emotional eating, but also through over a decade of working with hundreds of women doing the same, I started to notice that there were these patterns specifically for high achieving women who strive for really high goals, um, that there were different flavors, so to speak, but a lot of similarities. So I took a lot of these case studies and research and started to put them into certain categories. And lo and behold, that's what we now call the four roots of emotional eating. And what I have always believed was that the root of emotional eating really has nothing to do with food. Food is just the substance, it's just the thing that we use. But a lot of these roots can be what trigger the overs, whether it's overeating, overworking, over drinking, over responsibility, oversaturation, like all these overs is when we go past a point of integrity. So when I first started to introduce these roots and teach them and teach my clients about them, I started to notice that there was like a major jump in their results, a major jump in their healing process. And we were like cutting off years of work in the process. Like what used to take 4 years then took 2 years. What took 2 years took 6 months. And it was wild to me because I was literally just sharing what I was seeing. And then my clients were saying and literally embodying the proof. So, all this to say is that the roots of emotional eating lie much deeper than what we're doing with food. What we're doing with food is just the surface, but there's deeper roots, and they don't have anything to do with sugar or how much water you're drinking or even whether you have the healthy cookies versus the Toll House cookies. Like it doesn't, that's not what it's about, so much more and so much deeper. And when we start to see the roots as more of our shadows, then we can start to build strengths to overcome them so that the roots don't become our default mechanism and food doesn't become our coping mechanism.
All right. I love this. I love how deep we're going right now. So for those that listening who may go, wait, was she talking about shadows? Like my shadow looks fine. Dive into that. What does that mean for you with your program? Because shadows is very different for lots of different people depending on how we're working with them. And I think that's a really important aspect that you brought up within your program and your work. What if it was possible to have local, fresh groceries delivered right to your door? Think of all the free time you'd have. Well, Instacart gives unlimited grocery delivery for one low monthly fee. Forgot that special ingredient in your favorite dish? Instacart can deliver it to your front door in as fast as 1 hour. You can shop multiple stores, see deals in your area, and save time and money. I've been using Instacart for over 3 years. I started using them in Arizona and I'm using them here in Florida. I love the time-saving convenience. They pick the freshest products and they keep my eggs safe too. To receive your first delivery free, follow the link in the show notes so that Instacart knows that we sent you and to help support the show. Instacart, never step foot in a grocery store again.
So, shadow work and the way that I work with it is seeing it more as like weaknesses, but not really weaknesses. They're more like the things that we do or patterns or habits that we have when we're not really in our right mind and we're not really in our best selves. So, let me give you an example. So, one of the roots of emotional eating is fear. On the surface, what this looks like is eating when you're stressed or anxious or overwhelmed or even fearing the future, kind of like what you were sharing in the cookie example of I'm scared A, B, C, and D are going to happen. So when there's experiences like this, what I know, what my clients come to know is that fear is activated. And if left unmanaged, fear can just wreak havoc on your life. It can have you pick fights with people you love. It can have you fire clients if you're in business for yourself. It can have you respond in a not so nice way. It's like if fear left unmanaged literally can make you sick physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. So when we know the root of fear that's activated, we then get to work in managing it. So one of the tools that I teach my clients is called the fear flush. And for them to reach for this tool, use this tool, it's about grounding that fear energy and then being able to restore balance between thought and feelings. So I've had clients who, for example, I recently had a client whose mother was going through a pretty severe health crisis. And she was just in a lot of fear and anxiety around who could help her mother because her mother lives in Florida and she lives in the Northeast. And she reached for the fear flush, used it, and she said within a matter of minutes, she was getting a call from her brother who was volunteering to take care of their mother when he usually never steps in for this kind of thing. So, this is what's available when we manage the fear is like food didn't even enter the equation. She wasn't eating all of the food and then calling her brother. She was able to face what was bothering her, which were her fears, and then move through them to the other side into action to take care of the situation without hiding, without suppressing, without stuffing how she really felt. So the fear flush is also something that I'm working on behind the scenes to bring to my community as a free resource because I've really been seeing, especially in recent months, that the fear of our society is just snowballing. So you'll have to stay tuned to like my newsletter and things like that because I want to be bringing that tool to more and more people and I'm working on bringing that forward so it's not just in my programs.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. It sounds like mindset and subconscious work. If
Some
I,
of it,
Mhm.
yeah. I try not to put my work into a box because it has a blend. It has such a unique blend that it really stands on the map in its own. But yes, if we want to use common words, it could be called mindfulness, it could be shadow work, like
Mhm.
all that stuff,
All the
inner
stuff.
child work. Yeah, like all the stuff. It really depends and can be customized based on the client's needs.
I think that's really fabulous. I love and appreciate that you're like, don't you dare put me in a box. Like, I
Yeah.
so appreciate that energy from you because I'm always like that. Someone asks me what you do, I'm like, you should probably just sit down because
Yes.
that's a half an hour conversation of what I do, right? So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
very much for what you're doing because it really is like in listening to you now, and I've been through your website, which is beautiful and amazing, by the way, and looked through the programs. it's so much more than emotional eating. And
Right.
I really want to make sure that people are aware of that and the weight of it, your programs, it's so much more. This is embodiment, this is empowerment. And if nothing else, like please and definitely will get your information, but go over and check it out. And then, definitely sign up for her newsletter because it's so much more than going, but I'm not an emotional eater. Well,
Right.
maybe today you aren't, but you don't know what's happening tomorrow. And maybe it isn't food, and maybe it's, the reality TV or whatever it is. It doesn't have to just be food. And that's something else that I personally have really recognized over the years too. So I go through those steps in my mind of stop, ground, why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to try to manipulate and rationalize this in your head? Is it really true, or are you trying to bullshit yourself? Like,
Right.
and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's so wonderful of you that you want to bring that fear flush out of your program into our society, because knowing where we're going in society and in our nation, let alone the world, in the coming days, in the coming months, not even talking years, that is going to be
Right.
crucial and so important. So I commend you on wanting to share that with everybody. I think that's amazing. So everyone, definitely, we should all be on the list for this,
Thank
for sure.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you. One of my favorite quotes that I have personally been working on, but I'll share it here because it's just so beautiful, is a quote from Martha Beck in her book called Diana Herself, which also number one on my bookshelf, recommended to everyone. Being in the unknown without fear is the essence of adventure.
I, I
And
have
that
goosebumps
is,
and tears in my eyes all at the same time. Wow. I love
yeah,
Martha. By the way, I love Martha.
that
So
is like
powerful.
what
Oh,
I
that's
strive
everything.
for in every single day is like, we don't know what's coming. And I think this is especially true for those of us who are self-employed, is like we are living 24/7 in the unknown. There's no way around that. And we can choose to manage or cope with the unknown by, kind of letting the worst of ourselves come out. And for me, that was very much around emotional eating and even emotional drinking, I'll say. But now that those things are really behind me, it's okay. The unknown isn't going to change. I'm still going to be living 24/7 in the unknown. And I even choose this life, even though it doesn't feel like I consciously chose it. It's like my soul chose it, but that's a different conversation. But my responsibility in order to enjoy this life is to manage the fear. And that's everything that my work with my clients starts with, is managing the energy, managing the emotional energy. But it's also something that I'm continuing to do day in and day out, and even upping the ante on, as I can, as a sensitive too. Like you could just feel how uneasy our world is, like how unsafe we're all kind of walking around if we're really honest with
Mhm.
ourselves. So that's the quote that I'm just continuing to live into, is that if I want my days to feel like an adventure rather than a roller coaster to hell, I need to manage my fear.
That should be the headline on every newspaper around the world right now. That, in and of itself, by the way, would be an incredible title for a podcast. Just saying.
Ooh,
Just throwing that out there.
ooh, I like it. Maybe a
Uh-huh.
part two, we'll do it together.
I would love that. It's so crazy you just said that, because as you were talking, I heard my guides popping in and they're like, y'all can be doing retreats. Y'all could be doing like, and I just was seeing all this stuff flash. So absolutely. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, I would love that. That would be amazing. Yeah. Because there's so much of this that is needed. And obviously that's why this podcast was born during the shutdown.
Mm,
And I was guided to this. I had never even listened to a podcast a day in my life. I didn't even know. And now here we are
wow.
3 years later, and over, I think I did it the other day. I think it's like over 120 countries and I mean, it's just wild. I feel so blessed and so
Congrats.
grateful. Thank you. So honored to be able to meet people like yourself. Who I would have never otherwise necessarily come across or meet. And so it's such a blessing. And
Can I
now,
ask you a
mhm,
question?
sure.
Just to turn the tables. What is one way that you manage your fear that's like really helpful? I guess like what is, yeah, I'm just formulating the question on the fly, but like what is kind of like a not so ideal way that like almost like a default that you could fall into as managing fear? Like for me, it was emotional eating or emotional drinking. And then what is like a better way that you manage fear so that it doesn't quite literally eat you alive? So I guess like what's the shadow side and then what's the strength side and how you personally manage fear?
Yeah, I love that. And I appreciate that you kind of turn the tables there. So I would say I definitely have been down a couple of different roads. First half of my life, it was the aspect of not eating.
Hmm.
Hey there, preparedness champions. Are you ready to safeguard your future with the ultimate survival gear? Meet My Patriot Supply, your one-stop shop for all things emergency preparedness. From long-lasting food storage to top-notch survival gear to my favorite, water filtration, we've got you covered. Imagine having peace of mind knowing you're ready for anything, natural disasters, power outages, or even unexpected events. With My Patriot Supply, you can build a robust emergency plan and protect your loved ones. Don't wait for the unexpected. Act now. Visit jenniferpilates.com and prepare with confidence. Your future self will thank you. Gear up today. Head over to jenniferpilates.com to shop My Patriot Supply along with all of our partners. Because my life was so out of control from a very young age that I didn't eat and I wasn't a foodie. And if anyone knows any tourists, they're foodies. I've never been a foodie. It was the exact opposite. And then as I got into my 20s and my 30s, it became drinking and completely numbing out. This was before I knew that before I really knew who I was as an intuitive empath. I
Hmm.
numbed out, just numbed out, still not eating, just numbing. And then fast forward quite a bit to knowing who I am and knowing this healing journey that I'm on. I always call it a journey because you're going to be healing till the day you die. It's just the truth. I would say and I mentioned this during the pandemic, whatever we want to call it, the shutdown, that's when it became about emotional eating for me. That's when I can remember a day being like, well, if this is how it's going to go, then I am having a heyday. And I will say this this was the flip side of that. The alcohol all went away. And at that point, I wasn't really drinking that often, anyways. As you become usually more in tune, that kind of falls to the wayside. I was drinking organic wines at that point. But at that point, I would not have alcohol during the pandemic shutdown, whatever you call it. I wanted to be incredibly aware. I was
Hmm.
guided to be incredibly aware of everything that was going on around me so that I could see, so that I was awake to everything that was happening. So that's how food entered my life. And I was like, wow, like this is what people like, this is amazing. And when I say that, it would be like, for me, eating 2 slices of pizza and a salad, that was overdoing it because I've
Hmm.
never been a foodie. I can have no food and not even realize it. So it was that. Then it became about the baking cookies. Then it was maybe some ice cream. Then it was, some fried chicken. That it was comfort. It was comfort food, and that's what I
Hmm.
was comforting myself through food because I was no longer comforting myself through alcohol. So there
Hmm.
had to be this other outlet. And so that happened. And yes, I was working out. So the flip side was that at that point in time, I found and really recognized something called Pilates. And so I turned my
Mm.
Pilates from the land. At that point, I was locked down in Florida to the pool because it was so flipping hot, of which you and I talked about pre podcast. I was the only person depressed in Florida during that time, and I don't use that word lightly. I was miserable because I hate being hot. And so the flip side was that I ushered all those efforts into movement. So when I feel anxious, and especially again, as a highly sensitive person, as an intuitive empath, when I start to feel that vibration inside, I move. I'm either
Mm-hmm.
walking in nature outside or I'm getting in the pool at that point in time. That was became the flip side. So that's sort of how I negotiated and was able to balance it. So did I put on a few pounds? Yes, but it wasn't getting to the other side. It wasn't really going down this horrible. So like you mentioned, I could kind of justify it. And then as I met with an emotional eater, I began to really work with my mindset and I worked on subconscious work. And I worked deeper to understand that it wasn't as much about the pandemic as it was the environment of where I was, which
Mm.
goes back to childhood, which was an incredibly toxic and abusive and unsafe environment for me. So it went so deep,
Yeah.
much deeper than the surface of, oh, the world might end, than what you're thinking. And through that, I also adopted and learned this quote, and I share it with a lot of my clients. And it's similar, but a little different than your quote with Martha, is that fear is nothing more than excitement without breath. And so I really embody that. And I'm like, okay, are you really anxious? Are you really excited about this? But you are nervous about the unknown. And nine times out of
Right.
10, that's what it's about, right? Like I am a panicked flyer. I can't stand flying, but I love flying and I get such a good sleep on a plane. Okay, what an oxymoron that is, right? So it's working through those sides and being able to go deeper within yourself to heal, to transform, to find that empowerment. And so that's what I've done over this period of time. And now, gosh, I think I haven't even had a sip of alcohol, I think, since last August, last July. So almost going on a year.
Wow.
And I could care less, like neither here nor there. I do have a lot of substance abuse and all sorts of stuff in my families, but it's, I so enjoy life. And I'm to the
Mm-hmm.
flip side where I do enjoy food, where that first half of my life I didn't, or I didn't
Yeah.
allow myself. That was the one thing that I could control. And so I'm finding that happy medium. It's finding being in the flow.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it okay? And acknowledging that you're not perfect and that some days it just is what it is. And then,
Right.
then you're going to take a step forward that next day or that next moment, or, you know, having grace with yourself is the most important thing
Yeah.
that for everyone right now.
What I really love, well, first, like I'm hearing a couple of different themes in your story, which thank you so much for sharing. And I'm so glad that I asked because I think a lot of people will resonate with what you shared and even see how like my experience is a little bit different than your experience, and both are valid and real, and one is not better or worse. I think it's important that we have that perspective when we look at our relationship with our health, that everybody's relationships are different. And just because we don't have these quote unquote rock bottom moments where we, did 10 bags of potato chips or a whole bottle of vodka or something, like if it's not in alignment with you, then it's a problem, right? That's the beginning and the end of the argument is like if it's not supporting you, then it's not supporting you, and that's a problem. So, but I heard you talk about like the desire for control and then kind of like a superficial sense of control through not eating or then eating or drinking. Then I also heard the need for safety, particularly in the unknown, the element of family dynamics coming in, both present and past. So all of these, what I'm hearing, and then even how you interpret stimulation in your body, particularly emotional stimulation. That's also a big part of healing emotional eating is learning a better way to manage what we're feeling in our own bodies. But also what I really love is how you could see and you could hear and where you are in your relationship with yourself is that there's such a deeper assistance and like I will help you through this than where you were in the past. Where in the past it was kind of like, I don't know how to help you through this. We just have to get through it. Where now it's like, okay, when we feel the energy, it means we need to move. And that's a really great example. But like for myself, just because, we're different, everybody's different, I would also abuse working out. It was like I would overeat and then I would over exercise. So I didn't really find my balance with movement until many, many years later on because I was also kind of trapped in this cycle of I have to work off whatever I just ate. And that can be very true for a lot of women who are high achievers, is that we will tend to push ourselves to exhaustion as a way of like forcing ourselves to slow down or turn off because we don't know how to push the button ourselves. So I just wanted to make those highlights and connections for the people who are listening that everybody's relationship with food is different. Everybody's coping mechanisms are even different, but don't allow yourself to wait until things get worse before they get better. Because, like I said, if it's an issue, if it's causing issues in your life, if you don't feel happy and healthy and at peace with yourself, it doesn't have to stay that way. And like you got help, I got help, we are help for our clients and things like that. And like I said, like it doesn't have to stay that way and it doesn't have to get worse.
I agree. I agree. It was so beautiful. Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun. I can't even, like, so much to say. We could be here for hours. So, I really want to ask you this one question that I
Mhm.
love to ask guests on our show. What is one thing that maybe no one knows about Jessica?
Hmm. No, I don't know if there's like any deep secrets.
Oh, it doesn't have to be a deep secret.
Like, I put a lot of things out into the world, so I don't know. I think I need some help like narrowing it down. Can you give me like a
Sure. What is one thing that nobody knows about the relationship between you and your fur babies?
oh my gosh. So I could talk about my dogs all day, every day. So something that I do with my dogs, and it's actually a practice that I share with my clients and invite them to do. But so in my work with my clients, we talk about self-love and self-love being the acknowledgement and the appreciation and gratitude for yourself. But I use the example that we engage in love, we engage in that acknowledgement, appreciation, gratitude for things and people in our lives. We just don't really realize we're doing it. And I'll often give the example of like when you look at your dogs or you look at your kids or you look at something, someone you love, and you think like, oh, look how cute they are, or you just kind of relish in their adorableness or their beauty or, their energy or whatever it may be. And that self-love is doing that with ourselves. So one of the things that I do oftentimes in the morning is I will just watch my dogs wake up because they just have their own like morning routine of how they get out of their own beds. And something that I'll do is I will like lovingly pet them. And in my mind and in my heart, I'm just sending like loving energy to them. And it's really interesting to see how they receive it as a sensitive. And I believe my animals are also extremely sensitive as well. But it's just really a beautiful practice of sending and receiving love. And um, I do it because I enjoy it, not because I have to, or I'm not striving for anything. It's just actually really nourishing and enjoyable. And I know the impact of sending positive energy, especially to animals and other beings. So, like, that is something that I do, and I don't tell anyone I do it until now.
Until now, everyone around the
until
world
until
in
everyone
over
listening to this
120 countries
podcast. Yeah.
now knows what you do every morning.
And I'm fully red in the I am like I am full body blushing right now. I'm so warm and saying this because it's such an intimate practice I have with them. And like I said, I don't do it for anything. I just do it because it feels good. So
Absolutely. Oh, I love that you shared that. Thank you. Us fur mamas have to stick together.
yes.
Oh my gosh, this has been so amazing. As we close out the show today, what is one last piece of inspiration that you'd like to leave with us?
I would invite people to look beyond what they're doing with food and start to get curious as to what is really going on beneath the surface. What are you feeling? What are you really hungry for? Because it's these deeper questions that can unlock the real doors that hold the transformation that you're looking for. I would also say that there's an excellent resource and quiz on my website called the Four Roots of Emotional Eating Clarity quiz. So if you're looking to take a deeper look at your relationship with food, find out what's really deeply at the core of some of the food triggers, that is an excellent resource. And that comes with a beginner's guide to start working with the results that you get from the quiz. So I would say those two things of like look deeper, ask deeper questions. What am I really hungry for? What am I really feeling? What am I seeking to escape from? And then grab that resource on my website because it's changing soon because I'm going to put up the fear flush as a resource. So you'll want to get that too.
Wonderful. Well, that takes us into, please share with us your website so everyone can go and connect with you.
That's escapefromemotionaleating.com. Escapefromemotionaleating.com.
Great, fabulous. And of course, all of Jessica's information will be over on the show notes at jenniferpilates.com. So you can head over there, head to her website, grab her newsletter. So then grab the free resources now. So then you can also jump on the fear flush when that comes out as well. This has been so amazing, so educational, and I feel so empowering for so many people around food, being able to share your story, my story, and just what we can do to help ourselves as a world moving forward in our relationships in all areas, body, mind, and spirit. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you for having me and keep doing the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Well, as we say, until next time, may you live an empowered life from within. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Empowered Within with Jennifer Pilates. Your feedback is important. It helps me to connect with you and gives me insight into who you are and what you're enjoying about the show. For today's show notes and discount codes from today's sponsors, head over to jenniferpilates.com. Until next time, may you live an empowered life from within. Hey there, wellness lovers. Are you ready to transform your fitness journey? Dive into my on-demand Pilates fusion workouts and meditations. Imagine blending the best of Pilates, yoga, and mindful meditation all at your fingertips. Get strong, flexible, and zen anytime, anywhere, 24/7. Head over to jenniferpilates.com for your special exclusive subscription discount. Don't miss out on this ultimate fusion experience. Elevate your body, your mind, and your spirit today. Let's move and meditate together. Hey, beautiful souls. Are you ready to elevate your health and wellness journey? Join my Empowered Within Holistic Health and Wellness private community on Facebook. Imagine having a supportive tribe where you can connect, share, and grow together. Receive exclusive access to holistic health tips, empowering workshops, all designed to help you thrive. Head over to jenniferpilates.com to join our Empowered Within Holistic Health and Wellness community today. Don't miss out on this transformational experience. Empower your mind, body, and spirit today. Let's embark on this journey together. Head over to jenniferpilates.com to join our Empowered Within Holistic Health and Wellness community today. I'll see you there.